World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Sec's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. It's time once again for the Virtual Racing School V8SCOPS, round 13 of 15. We're approaching the tail end of what has been a very competitive and hard-fought championship season, and we come to Australia's action track, Winton Motor Raceway, for the 13th round. This is going to be a fun one. We've got a few sprint races lined up tonight. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box is Dan Yeaman, and he's doing double duty tonight for the second time ever. Had to step in for directorial duties back at the Donington round and is doing it once again. Unfortunately, Jay Kennedy has been suffering some power issues thanks to the current flood situation in Victoria. Our thoughts go out to everybody affected by said floods. Well, Dan, it's time to turn our attention to the racing action here tonight at one of the best tracks in Australia, in my opinion, Winton Motor Raceway. It is short, sharp, and fast. A really awesome circuit. And, bit of a misnomer there, fast. The average speed here is quite low compared to some of the other tracks we visit, but I'm looking forward to this all the same. A hard track to pass on, and it offers you no opportunity to rest.
That's very true there indeed. Thank you, Reese, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining us here this evening. Apologies if we've got some audio problems, some different setup in terms of my audio configuration since I last did production, which caused me a bit of a headache there during the introduction. Thanks to those who chimed in to let us know about that. Hopefully it's all working well. I'll try and get the broadcast feed up if I can too, but I've got a limited number of monitors, of course, and so many things I can focus on. But let's turn our attention, of course, to what we've got here tonight. Winton Motor Raceway, one of the more recent additions to the iRacing platform here, so great to be able to expand the Australian content here with us available to race. 3 kilometres of country Victorian racetrack, only somewhat recently extended though, Reese. Of course, current configuration as of 1996 from turn 10 through to turn 12 and what is now current front straight. For those who have got fond memories of this track from its opening days in 1961 through to the mid-1990s, it certainly was quite a different circuit there.
That it was, and of course there's that ever-famous quote from Dick Johnson, like riding a bike around your clothesline. Only 3 Ks long, this place, and I was thinking just before the broadcast, what if we had a 1,000 K race around here? That would certainly be a big issue. Something to the tune of 330 laps. But regardless, opportunities around here to pass, they are very sparing. You basically got to rely on the car in front of you to make a mistake if you want to try and make a move cleanly and quickly around here. Well, we'll have to wait and see how the racing action goes in Super Split 2, which is currently getting into their prep mode in the 30-minute practice session before things get underway for a 30-lap sprint race here. And I got to say, with a full field of Australian touring cars around here, got a bit of a taste of it in the V8SCOPS supports categories on Friday night. We definitely saw that mistakes are the way you get by people.
Indeed, there were plenty of those which certainly set things up across the course of those races. So you can see here the times as they stand in practice, and given once again that top half of the field race looking fairly competitive once again, and will certainly therefore require drivers to be maximising every opportunity that comes their way. And as you said, more to the point, really going to come down to those who can exploit mistakes or pressure some errors out of the drivers ahead of them to really get those places moving up and down the grid tonight.
Absolutely. Well, the driver on top is, of course, Thomas Hinds, 1 minute 18.8 in the practice session, currently in the pits at the moment and taking a bit of a rest, and going back out in his Henry James Racing Jinx Shifters Mustang. And Team Jinx Shifters have certainly been a force in the SCOPS supports and Split 2 as well. We saw a dominant performance by Aaron Gilbert and Henry King in the V8s category on Friday night. Gilbert currently sitting in 7th place in the practice times here. Of course, there's no qualifying session for Split 2. The grid is set by the results of the pre-qualifying that took place over the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, second half of the week. And looks to me as though Tim Mulford is going to be moving up into Split 1. He would have started on pole for Split 2, but Kobe Jones, I believe it was, is unable to make the Split 1 race tonight. So that means Tim Mulford moves up into Split 1, and it's going to be Bruce Tannock who starts on pole position for this 30-lap race in Split 2.
That is very true there indeed. So important to watch it there. So just tuning here with Craig Schultz in the 654 95 Sim Sports Mustang. Unfortunately, looks like my choice timing of car selection, they're not quite up to scratch tonight here. One of the things I really wish I could do is make sure I had space for a track map on my screens. Unfortunately, yeah, I'll whinge about it here and now real quick. 4 monitors, only so many things I can have up and be able to display. And yes, copy that. I will try and find a little bit more levels in my microphone. There isn't much left, unfortunately, for me. No, don't do that. That's going to be seen on screen. Sorry, everyone. Finicky here. I might need to try and do that one in a mid-race break there, because otherwise that will come up. And you'll see that all. And we don't want to particularly try and do that mid-race. So
I'll just shout a little.
I'll just shout a little bit more through Super Split 2. How does that sound? We'll go with that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Make sure to get some distortion on it as well. Really get that Jake Sperry energy here in the comms box. We miss you, Sperry. Really been feeling his absence from V8SCOPS this year, but of course we soldier on, and we still have a really awesome broadcast crew here at SimSpeed TV. It's been really good to see Dan step to the fore and come into the comms box, and if I do say so myself, Dan, I think we make a pretty good team in this comms box. Either way, we'll continue to test that notion when the racing happens. As we look at Ben Christensen in the ANZ Motorsports number 9, currently 3rd in the practice session, and it'll be interesting to see what the drivers do to negotiate the format here. There is a compulsory pit stop in this 30-lap Split 2. The pit window starts at the end of lap 2 and closes at the end of lap 28. So you have that opportunity to jump into the pits and get 4 tyres on the car. The requirement is for at least 2 tyres, but we've seen drivers go for all 4 because it doesn't cost you any extra time versus only taking 2 tyres.
Yes, that is very important to note there indeed. So expect everyone to throw on the 4 tyres. To do 2 would be quite crazy there, as another driver's going to pull into the pits. And once again, I'll have to go and find somebody else out on track. Nope, nope, that's 2 from 2 in a row. Not doing too well. Simon, you out hit? No, Simon's still in the pits as well. Let's see, someone who might be circulating around. Let's pick up here. Go, Brendan Murdoch. Pick up 23rd and penultimate driver in the session at this stage. Reese, actually the final driver yet to actually set a time in warm-up. Lindsay Hobbs in the number 27 for Excalibur Esports. So a decent field hit tonight, but certainly a little bit quiet in Super Split 2. But it will give us a bit of an idea as to how things go around this track, because 24 cars is still 12 rows. That's a decent number, I'd consider all things saying. And how that then translates and how that might sort of set the stage for what we see in the main game with 40 cars. David Coleman just improved to P9 on our screens, and then he immediately pulls back over. So apparently we're really striking gold here tonight. So let's jump back once again. We've got Jamie McKnight here following around the synergy teammate of Matthew Brunt. So I cross my fingers and hope that these two will stay out on track for a little longer here.
Indeed. Well, it's always good, I think, to see drivers going into the pit lane anyway, because the pit entry here at Winton is rather difficult. It's a very interesting way to go into the pits. You see it split off there on the exit of the penultimate corner, and you've got to slow right down to negotiate a 90-degree right that's only one lane wide, and then a little chicane on the way into the pits as well. Speaking of chicanes, turns 1 and 2 is technically one of them. A very fast one, and you've got to be careful of that curb there on the outside of the exit of turn 2. On Friday night, we saw plenty of cars come a cropper when they ran too wide over that very rough curb, and they went airborne as a result. Fortunately, the majority of the curbs there in the first sector are nice and flat, and this corner here, turn 5, double apex, tightens up towards the rollover corner, this right-hand kink, and on the way into the hairpin section of the lap. This is a place where traction and mechanical grip are paramount. And we can see that Jamie McKnight has gotten his car sorted out through this section. A nice early apex for this next hairpin. Get on the throttle as early as you possibly can. Make sure not to spin up the wheels as you go down this very short straight to turn 10, where there's a very high curb in the middle of the corner, but a nice flat one on the exit. So you want to try and avoid hitting that curb too hard in the corner to get a good run on the straight down to turns 11 and 12. And it's a very short, sharp blast between these two corners. Really tests your patience as a driver. Either way, checkered flag flies in the practice session. Jamie McKnight gets one more lap in before we switch over to the race session here. Once again, 30 laps with a compulsory pit stop for tyres, and no fuel restriction here in split 2. So we're going to be seeing tyres be the order of the day here, and tyres get a real beating around Winton Motor Raceway. Here is how they're going to line up. So, unfortunately, Bruce Tannock not in the session, so that means Simon Chadwick is going to start on pole position for split 2 here alongside Craig Schultz. It is an all-95 SimSport front row. Lindsay Hobbs lines up alongside Matt Brunt on row 2, and then it's Blake Neck and the TriStar machine alongside Andrew Ritchie for 5th and 6th. In 7th spot, it's going to be Matt Whitaker with Brody Sentence lining up in 8th. And then it's going to be Stephen Kokoschka and Thomas Hinz who line up 9th and 10th, with Brady Baldwin and Vincent Skilbeck rounding out 11 and 12.
That they are indeed. P13 tonight for Super Split 2 is going to go to David Coleman there. Aaron Gilbert alongside in position number 14. Alex Court out of 15th place. Got Stead Miller alongside there in 16th. Dean Powell and Ben Christensen on row number 9 here tonight. And the revs have already risen. So, yep, indeed. Unfortunately, going to have to cut that one short there, folks. Apologies there, because we are green and underway here at Winton. Short timer has caught us off just a little bit there. Oopsie daisies. Let's get that there, green. We are up and running here into turn 1.
Yep, looks like a bit of a bad start for Blake Neck, and we've already got a spinner coming into turn 1. It was Ben Christensen who got sent off there. You see him rejoining in the background. But a very tight start here on lap 1 at Winton Motor Raceway, but the 9-5 pair are still leading 1 and 2. Really good start from Lindsay Hobbs as well. He is piling the pressure onto Craig Schultz as they make their way through to the hairpins for the first time. The field majority single file now, and they've got to be careful not to lock up the tyres. We just saw one of those there from Craig Schultz as we ride on board with Lindsay Hobbs. He's getting some big pressure from Synergy Sim Racing's Matthew Brunt, as that is the 09. Oh yeah, oh Lord indeed. That is a pretty big problem there at the first of our hairpins. Who's that? David Coleman involved in that. Looks like Kokoschka, Skilbeck as well. So we're going to have to...
Several drivers
we're going to have to...
Yep, we can certainly jump to the first of our virtual racing school replays for tonight. Let's try have a go. Oh, that's the on there. Let's try that one there. Whilst I
keep an eye on Skilbeck.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do that now first. And oh, not quite there. Go back a little bit more here if we can.
Skilbeck tried to go up the inside of Blake Neck here into the hairpin and ended up cleaning up Stephen Kokoschka, and that blocked the track on the outside. Very difficult to do, and we saw David Coleman there as part of the secondary contact from drivers trying to work their way through there. That's a real shame there, and it looks to me like Vincent Skilbeck might come under the auspices of race control for that incident. Skilbeck, though, as we go back to live pictures, is going rather slowly out on circuit. It looks like he was trying to redress the position there.
Yeah, apologies. That was actually still the replay feed. My bad there. So we are back to live. It's here. I've just seen some movement up towards the front of the field here. We've got Andrew Ritchie in focus there in one of the Banzer Alliance cars, the 927. Currently trying to get up the inside here of, where are you? That's Matt Whitaker there in the 823 just ahead. So let's jump on board here with Andrew as we head down to turn number 10. That's the first forward here. And you can see, unfortunately though, this has fallen back behind a little bit since we just saw he was getting close there. So on board here with the 927 before. Let's see if we can.
Yeah, Andrew Ritchie down 2 spots from where he started. There's been some big changes in the midfield with Kokoschka, Neck, Skilbeck and Coleman all falling down as a result of that incident coming into the first hairpin on lap 1. It looks like there's been some issues for Kokoschka. He has just lost the 2 spots to Neck and Skilbeck, and the reason why is he's going into the pits. So obviously, now that we are on lap 3, the pit window has opened, and Stephen has decided it's for the best to get his mandatory pit stop out of the way now, get a clear track, and see if he can make up some time. Well, now we continue on forward, and oh wow, have a look at that big lock up there into the first of our hairpins. It looks to me like that is potentially Aaron Gilbert chasing down Stuart Crawford.
Oh, yeah.
No. Aaron Gilbert and Stuart Crawford are there. Yeah, indeed. Making their way through the hairpins. Gilbert rounding Crawford up round the outside, and Crawford has to go wide there. That allows Dean Powell through. The door opens there, and positions change there for lucky 13th spot. But for how long? Looks like Crawford's going to try and fight this and stay ahead. Very nicely done. Got the inside line for the 90 degree, or probably a bit less than 90 degree left-hander, sorry, in the 3rd last turn here at Winton. Well, hello, Simon. Oh,
a moment here for Ben Christensen. Just noticed he's just dropped down a couple of spots on the timing tower. So I'm just going to see if we can quickly try this one again. Queue up oh, yep, he's definitely had quite the moment here. So, all right, we're going to just go on back a little further. That's not quite there. Let's go here to exit of turn 9. And what's happened here to Christensen? Here turn 10. And, oh, unfortunately, just all by himself there on the outside race.
Yep, trying to get around Zach Rattray White, and just caught the grass on the way in. Managed to just hold on to it, but losing a lot of positions there was Ben. That's a big shame for him, down 4 now from where he started in that number 9 ANZ Motorsports machine. Does have a bit of clear track ahead of him towards Skilbeck though. Seeing also a bit of a change, Thomas Hinds has made his way past Lindsay Hobbs and up into the top 3 spots, but Hobbs is trying to fight him back here. Oh, a bit of side-by-side running, always good here at Winton. Bit of a straighter exit on the outside for Hinsey means he has some extra momentum down the straight. He can protect that inside line coming into the penultimate corner and secures 3rd. Hinsey is up 7 spots now, most positions gained in the field.
That's a good move there indeed to bring that so making his way forward with plenty of speed so far in this part of the race. So obviously it will be important to know what can he do to catch up to the guys ahead, because, well, look here and you'll see that up ahead of him, and it's not going to try it this way. Alas, no, play ball for me. I was going to try and pick up our lead up. There we go. That's the gap there between your top 3.
Hooray!
And you can see that actually, in the past little while, he's starting to make some inroads here now with some clean air on the nose of the 52. He's still 3.5 seconds back from the race leader, which is in the hands of Simon Chadwick for the time being. But Craig Schultz next up, and at that 1.7 second marker. So we'll try and make his way forward, I am sure, even further from here.
Yep, 9.5 still run 1 and 2 at the moment, with Chadwick and Schultz leading the way. And we'll get a bit of an eye into what Hinsey's true pace is like, because his lap times haven't quite matched Chadwick and Schultz so far, and that's because Hinds has been working his way through the traffic and passing people. So now that there's a bit of clear air, will be able to compare their lap times from here on out. So Chadwick sets a 19.4, Craig Schultz a 19.5, and that is a 119.3 from Thomas Hinz. So a little bit of time gained on the 9.5 pair up front. We have a race on for the lead, I would say.
That we do indeed. So they are spaced out for the time being. Actually, I would say this opening sector of the lap here, Hinz not quite able to make inroads just yet on the race leader, who we've got here on screen. But Craig Schultz staying at around the 1.6 second, 1.5 second marker. Again, the back and forth of this circuit and where you gain time versus where you lose it. Really interesting to see here as to how it all comes together around Winton Motor Raceway. So see here, indeed, Hinzy, biggest mover in the field time. But another driver who's making moves so far in the upwards direction. They are a little further on back, so Stuart Crawford, but himself and Roy Clark also up 6 and 7 places respectively, even though they are currently down in 14th and 16th places. And there it is, that's the button. So let's bring it up here. You can see here, Roy Clark currently up from starting in 23rd place. That's in the way. And then, as I said, just ahead of him, Stuart Crawford up from P20. So several drivers making good moves forward at this point of the race. Unfortunately, it has come at the expense of some others, such as, in particular, Blake Neck, our biggest loser so far in the opening part of the race.
Yeah, big shame for Blake Neck. He had an absolutely torrid lap 1, but he's trying his best to work his way back up. Trying to line up Jason Fewens here, who I noticed had a bit of an incident on the previous lap with Jamie McKnight, who's a few positions ahead here. McKnight tried to get up the inside of Fewens at... Oh, God, Blake, be careful of that curb. This very corner, McKnight tried on Fewens and they made contact. Fewens went for a little trip through the gravel and lost a few places. So he's trying to get back into a rhythm here, but with Blake Neck right on his tail, it is going to be difficult. This whole section of the lap here, the first half, is a place where you don't have any opportunity to have a rest. You are braking and turning the whole time through. You're trying your best to manage the rear tires, trying to spin up on every single exit. There's over 600 horsepower going through the rear wheels of these things, so exiting slow corners is definitely a place where you have to be super careful, and Winton definitely brings that behaviour out of the cars. Well, keeping an eye on this on board here, with Fewens trying his best to keep Neck behind him, and we'll see what Blake can do over the course of this race. The best thing Neck can hope for is a potential safety car, but there hasn't been a big enough incident as of yet to warrant one. Of course, if you're new to V8SCOPS competition, there's a manual safety car in these sessions. If a driver goes off the track and is not able to get back going, they can't just escape back to pit lane. They have to request a tow from race control. We also highlight Matt Whitaker, who in the YouTube chat it has been highlighted is his solo V8SCOPS debut, and car 823 is running quite well here. He's down one spot from where he started, but he's still holding on to a great position in the top 10, and definitely bringing out a good case for himself here in his first ever V8SCOPS solo race.
Indeed. Looking to try and put the pressure on Brady Baldwin, who we can just see ahead there in the 087 machine. Just jump on board with Baldwin, apparently. The button, there it is. That's the button. So here's Baldwin on board here with his machine. Also decked out in a retro-inspired design here for Winton this round. We'll jump to one of the trackside cams here today. We'll see Baldwin come around the final turn in second there, and indeed that certainly looks quite a bit familiar, I dare say, to those who've been watching the supercar scene in the real life for some time. So good job there from Brady and the high octane crew, Brady's painter, and to get that one together there and make that one look nice tribute back to the mid-2000s with that design, I dare say.
Indeed, it's always nice to see a little bit of real-life flair to the liveries here, and it definitely sticks out, doesn't it? As looks like Blake Neck there coming into the pit lane. He's going to get his mandatory pit stop out of the way nice and early, so all 4 tyres should jump onto that car very shortly. Yep, off the jacks, and away he goes. Of course, no fuel restriction for this 30-lap race, so drivers will just fill it up all the way through. Either that, or they will still run light at the start of the race and try and get some extra fuel into the tank when they jump into the pits. So for Nick, that pit stop was 9 seconds long, and that's the quickest we've seen so far. Kokoschka's pit stop was about 10.7 seconds. Look a bit further back, because there is some interesting battling going on here behind Lindsay Hobbs. This is a fight for fourth, and Matthew Brunt has decided, well, it's probably time for me to make my way into the lane. So some free positions for the drivers around him for now, but everyone else still has yet to take their mandatory pit stop. We'll see how quick Brunt's time is. Remember, he'll be fighting with the likes of Lindsay Hobbs and Brodie Sentence for that last spot in the top 4 as things stand. Thomas Hinz is really starting to jet away from those guys from 4th on back. Hinz was again the fastest car on track last time around, 0.07 of a second faster than our leader Simon Chadwick. Looks like Vincent Skilbeck also in the lane too, but Matthew Brunt completes his stop. That is 10.7 seconds done, and it's a 10.5 second stop for Vincent Skilbeck. So around the 9-10 second mark is what we'll be expecting in terms of pit stops. The quickest lane time belongs to Blake Neck, 28.6 seconds. That is pretty much 2 seconds faster than anyone else has gone through the lane at the moment. So Neck already gaining a good amount of time there on that pit stop. We'll see what he can do from here in clear air.
That will be important to keep our eyes on. Although in saying that, Matthew Brunt has come out as the far driver. Oh, hello there! Just saw this flash up on the timing screen. Unfortunately, Alex caught around here at turn number 10. Definitely going to have to jump back on this one here and see if we can pick up what on earth has happened to him at this point in the race. So coming out of turn number 9 here, we'll see on the replay, thanks to Virtual Racing School, down the inside here of the 927 of Andrew Ritchie, gets up on the curb to make sure he doesn't run into the side of Ritchie there. Reese, and unfortunately loses the rear and has to do a big spin there, but right on the racing line. Very good avoidance by several drivers there to see that car. And then, has he stalled it there for a second as well, perhaps?
Potentially. There's every chance that that happened. That's a bit of extra time lost there for Alex Cord. He's down in 15th place. While we were on that replay, we've had some big moves into the pits. Thomas Hinz has completed his mandatory pit stop, coming out of 3rd place. He's re-emerged in 16th. And he's got some clear air ahead of him as well. 9.8 seconds stop, 29.9 second lane time. So still very quick there from the number 52. Let's see if that early pit stop works out for him. Considering the track temperatures, it's 18 degree air temperature, 22 Celsius track temperature. The undercut won't be as powerful as it would be if the track was hotter. But Winton, of course, is a track that eats tyres for breakfast, lunch and dinner, so Hinsey might be able to get a good undercut in this early stage. His tyres will be hurting by the end.
There's several more drivers taking to the pits this time by. One of them here, if I can find the right camera pack, is indeed Lindsay Hobbs now on the lane here. We'll see what the 27 can do. Coming in from P number 4. If I'm not mistaken here. Unfortunately, we're going to lose Lindsay here behind the wall there. So let's switch over on the side of the track here. So looking to see around that 9-10 second marker for the 27 machine here. Down off the jacks already. Indeed, we'll get going there at 10 seconds. That will bring his lane time to just over 30. And out comes the 27, just behind Matthew Brunt. So, again, I think, well, actually, pardon me, yeah, Brunt was just passed by Hobbs before we saw the 134 come down to the lane. Apologies, there is Brunt. So, nice gain there with the undercut. No major surprises there. Of course, undercutting on fresh tyres certainly can be powerful if you're looking for initial track mission, but he will have cars ahead to contend with as we see here in a second here on board with 134. So just up ahead there, Brennan Murdoch in the 748 yet to pit, and is one of the few cars, one car sort of isolated now amongst the group of drivers that have pitted so far in this race. Reese, if we bring up
leader in
there, and indeed there we go, Simon Chadwick next to pull the trigger, brings the 957 down to the pit lane.
He does indeed. Well, this is going to be big here. We'll see how that undercut for Thomas Hinz works for him. As Chadwick is up on the jacks now in the 9.5 Mustang. And continuing on is Brodie Sentence, Brady Baldwin, Matt Whitaker, etc. Chadwick, 30.3 second lane time, and it looks like he has lost that. No, he hasn't. He hasn't lost that much
Actually, has lost a lot.
Yeah, he has lost a lot. Sorry. Brain no worky. Thomas Hins's undercut has worked fantastically, and he is right on the bumper of the race leader. And considering also the other 9.5 car of Craig Schultz, well, he'd just taken his pit stop as well, and he has come out behind Thomas Hins. So there we go. Hinsey is properly racing for the lead now. Let's see what he can do to preserve those tyres and try and have a proper run here at Simon Chadwick for the lead. More drivers coming in. Andrew Ritchie has just completed his pit stop as well. And we've had some pretty big news for Jamie McKnight. Remember how I mentioned earlier that McKnight had tagged Jason Fewens around in turn 3? Well, he recently received an order from Race Control to redress that. The problem is McKnight is in 7th at the moment, has yet to make a stop. Jason Fewens is down in 22nd and has made a pit stop. So McKnight is going to cost himself an awful lot with that redress.
Indeed, a big flurry of pit activity on this lap here, Reese. So now coming down to only just a handful of cars yet to get their service complete. Your top 3, and actually that will be just about it. In fact, the only exception is apparently David Coleman, who's unfortunately for him still down in 23rd place. So unfortunately, also been watching all the action elsewhere on track so far. Big trouble for the 640, and well, pardon me, actually, he was caught up in lap 1 and was there last of all the drivers waiting at turn 7 to get going again. That's probably part of the line was a bit damaged, but unfortunately for him, not able to make inroads. Is now amongst a whole host of drivers who have pitted, but still to get his service out of the way. So a whole bunch of drivers down the lane that time by, including here Alex Court, who's come back out now down the order in 21st place, just in behind Jason Fewens. We're speaking of him. You can see Fewens, apologize for the longest stops here tonight. Fastest stop still goes to Blake Neck here in the 42. You can see he's currently up in 12, trying to pressure back there at Aaron Gilbert. At the same time, Reece, make sure he doesn't give Steve Miller directly behind him a chance to get up the inside of his number 42 TriStar Racing Mustang.
Yeah, well, that Mustang is in a sandwich of drivers that have already been racing at Winton this weekend. Aaron Gilbert taking both race wins in the V8s category at Winton, and Stead Miller as well, racing in, I believe, both the flat 6s and the V8s here. So a bit more track experience for those guys in terms of race conditions. Blake Neck definitely has his work cut out for him, but it's been a great recovery from the number 42 after being last of the order, getting spun around on the first lap. And oh dear, that's Simon Chadwick, who's had a big issue there in the first sector. I don't think that was a slowdown. Thomas Hins is now the effective race leader, and Chadwick has fallen behind his teammate Craig Schultz. So something has gone very wrong there for the 957. And was it contact? Hinsey trying to go up the inside of turn 3. We'll have to see here. Coming out of turn 2. Oh, okay, that explains part of it there. Chadwick collecting the curb on the exit of turn 2. And then here in turn 3, Hinsey up the inside of Chadwick, and they make contact on the way into turn 4. Oh dear.
Let's just see if we can get a different action. Well, I think we'll try and get back to the racing action. So, yeah, thought there was maybe just the issue at turn 2 for the 957. Turns out no. A bit of a double dose, unfortunately, there for Chadwick when it comes to a bit of a drama out on the road for him. So that sends him back to P5, but we'll see.
Chadwick's come in for a second stop.
Indeed.
Oh dear. Second run through the lane for him, and this is going to really hurt our pole sitter. That is huge for Simon Chadwick. Wondering what the logic behind that is, but potentially he got a bit of damage from that contact with the curb and Thomas Hins as well. So that has unfortunately ruined the race of Simon Chadwick. So Thomas Hins still your effective race leader, but Roy Clark and Jamie McKnight here are in the top 2 positions running. These guys have yet to come in for a pit stop, and they, along with David Coleman, are the 3 drivers yet to pit in this race. So we'll see what Clark can do here in the Banter Alliance Mustang. Thomas Hins starting to round them up. And don't forget, Jamie McKnight still has that redress order from Race Control hanging over his head.
Important to note here. Going to jump on board with your provisional race leader, but he will be still out there for a little longer. McKnight's going to come down the lane this time by and get that service complete here at the end of lap 16, so basically splitting the race in half. Unlike most of those out here, some of the Rockets go for that earlier stop and go for the longer stint here in the back half of the race. As you see here, it does really hard to stay out for much longer, because the undercut has certainly been powerful tonight, and we'll just look how quickly Thomas Ince is catching up to him on fresher tyres.
Yeah, that's huge. Big pace difference between these cars, and it looks like Roy Clark might just lose the race lead on this lap. But if he can keep Hinsey behind, he'll at the very least fall down the order once he comes in for a stop. But have a look at the extra momentum that Hinsey has up the inside into the first of our hairpins. He goes, and Roy Clark saw him coming from a mile back and decided to give him room. And, well, that is move completed, and Thomas Hinz into the race lead now after starting from 10th position. Really awesome run from Hinsey here. Of course, he's taken advantage of issues for other drivers, but certainly doesn't take anything away from the pace that the number 52's been showing here tonight.
Indeed, he's doing a good job here. So we'll see now as they make their way down to turns 11 and 12. You can see also now Craig Schultz. Can he make his way through on Roy Clark? Doesn't need to, as it turns out, because Roy Clark will respond to McKnight's pit stop there on the lap prior, and that now opens the road up for these two guys to get on with it here at the front of the field. And they are quite a ways ahead of just about everyone else. The next driver here is Matthew Brunt, now going to move up into P3 in that 134 machine. And his early pit stop on he's now on his 9th lap of his stint here, which is really doing a good job for him in terms of getting out and making grounds. And I would love to go up. It's over here as well. Let's bring us up here. I can show you how the strategies are playing out here. Mostly centered around lap 10, it would seem, but drivers like Matt Brunt coming in early there on lap 9, but Nick hasn't quite made progress yet, although again, Blake Nick is recovering from that lap 1 incident he got entangled with as one of the victims from that one there. They are certainly showing that early pit stop to be beneficial at this stage so far. The only question is whether their tyres will hang on here tonight, although I would suspect probably, given the favourable conditions you mentioned earlier.
Indeed. We got a question in the broadcast chat earlier for when the big dogs are racing. Well, qualifying for Split 1 will begin at 7:25 p.m. Australian Eastern. So we haven't got long to go before we see the top split running. Just got to complete this one first, and then there'll be a short break in between sessions, and then we'll be able to go racing for the main game. So Sly Ducks 1, there is your info for you as we ride on board here with Aaron Gilbert in the number 7, trying to line up Andrew Ritchie. Gilbert's another one of the drivers that has made up bulk positions in this one. He's part of a quartet of drivers who is up 6 spots. He's joined by Brady Baldwin, Stead Miller, and Dean Powell. So we'll see what Gilbert can do here to try and find his way past Ritchie. Big helping of oversteer on the exit of turn 2. Fires it early in towards the apex of turn 3, just trying to keep his way out of a spin, potentially. We'll have to wait and see how this works out for him. The tyres are a lap younger here for Aaron Gilbert, so Andrew Ritchie is going to have to keep his eye out here in the 927. Oh, that was a bit of a lock up there for him. And he goes a bit deep into the first of our hairpins. Gilbert is going to try around the outside. Nope. No room there. He's going to go around the outside into the second hairpin as well. Trying to line up a late apex, but Ritchie parking it on the apex is just stymieing the forward momentum here for Aaron Gilbert.
Yeah, that was close there for a second, trying to juggle which side of the car Aaron Gilbert would end up on there, left or right, but no dice just yet. He'll have to hang on for a little longer before he tries again as lap 20 ticks over for your race leaders. So getting into the final third of the race. Just to see, that's a little one of the apex for Ritchie, but you can see here a little bit of a struggle there for traction from Gilbert. He doesn't quite get the exit he wants, and he will need to be careful at least, because he's going to jump on board with the man who's sitting in behind him. He's come up a nice way here, has Blake Neck, and making good progress once again. Certainly this doesn't look too great in terms of stat numbers, but considering the fact that he did indeed start in P5 for this one tonight, making good progress to get back into the top 10 at this point. And I think the pace here looks to be on track. So show us here at his up. So, pardon the race. That hasn't quite worked there. No, that's not an 18-second margin there. So we'll take that one off screen and just focus on the action here on the track at this moment.
Yes, indeed. Well, I can tell you that Neck's last lap was a 1 minute 20.2, and that was a solid 4 and 5/10 faster than Richie and Gilbert respectively. So Neck is the one with the pace in this trio right now. There we go. That's exactly the stat that we need there. He has taken out some really big chunks of time here versus Aaron Gilbert, and now with Gilbert still stuck behind Richie, this is going to give a great opportunity for Neck to move up a couple more positions, and still remains to be seen whether or not he can recover to his starting position. He's still a fair way away from Brady Baldwin, who is the current occupant of that 5th position. So, barring a safety car, I don't think Blake Neck is going to find his way back up into 5th anytime soon. We'll keep our eye out, though. Oh dear, that's some problems there for Vincent Skilbeck on the front straight. There's a big issue there, and flashing of the lights there from Stuart Crawford. Was that a redress, I wonder? Skilbeck gets back up to speed. There might have been an issue there between Skilbeck and Crawford earlier on in the lap, and I'm going back to see.
Yeah, it's even further back than how far I've gone. I've got to jump back quite a ways here, folks. So I'll see if I can pick up exactly what's happened. So you can see, yeah, definitely. Okay, down towards. So you can see it's just Joey Knight behind. So no, it's a long way back from here as to where exactly that's come undone. So.
Doesn't look like it was a redress. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the deal is there.
Because as you see, just pulls on over and basically parks the thing well off the racing line. As you said, we'll see Stuart Crawford come around the final turn in a second, and on the headlights there from the 54. So, a bit of a mystery as to what's triggered that one. Because it's so far back that I'll probably be chasing my tail if we keep trying to go back and figure out what's happened there between those two drivers, unfortunately, as well. Head back to live pictures here. You can see it. G. Crawford's ended up back behind the 091. And whilst we were trying to decipher the replay and what might have been going on.
Well, either way, the race will continue. It's entered its final 3rd, and with lap 22 of 30 already completed. Okay. I think I've just gone back to see where the incident happened. Dan, it was back on lap 16 between Skilbeck and Crawford. They were running side by side out of turn 5 and trying to negotiate a battle with Matt Whitaker. And there was just a little bit of contact between them, and Crawford went off the track. So we don't need a replay for that, but I'll just explain that for context there. It took a while for that redress to be done, but evidently it would have been noted by race control. On board here with Brodie Sentence, who currently occupies the 4th spot running on the racetrack and chasing down Matthew Brunt for a podium, and Sentence up 4 places. So it's been a really good run here from the Premier Racing team number 60.
It has indeed. I was just curious to see because he has closed up over the past couple of laps, and you can see here that actually there you go, on that previous lap loses a tiny bit of time now. He's up on the rear end of Matthew Brunt here. So I'm curious to see how things play out there for these two drivers in this final part of the race. Of course, Matthew Brunt going a lot earlier for pit lane on his set of tyres, of course. So Brodie Sentence has fired. Hello, who's that? A 9.5 car off in the road?
That's Schultz. Craig Schultz.
Oh, dear me.
He was running 2nd.
The 654 parked out in the dirt, and unfortunately there for Schultz indeed. Drops down to just P5 for now, but that will put him a ways off where he wants to be. So, back we go once again. It's time for another virtual racing school replay to see how that's come undone, and that's how it's happened. Let's pick it up so we can see it all here on the replay, folks.
Coming into turn 5, and I think he just went a little bit too deep there and caught the grass on the outside, spun it around. That's a huge shame. Things were looking so good for 9.5 Sim Sports earlier on in this race, but issues have befallen both of their drivers that were in the top 2, and they are no longer a factor in the lead battle for this race. Thomas Hinds leads by 12.5 seconds over Matthew Brunt, and Brodie Sentence is now looking at a potential 2nd place here.
It does mean that now, also the other thing to note, if you're new to V8SCOPS, although again, I say that, and the odds-on new people watching V8SCOPS at this point in the season may be low, but nevertheless, it's important to note that this is obviously being Super Split 2 is the warm-up to the top split drivers later on, but crucially for the winner here in Super Split 2, which, as we said, well and truly in the hands of Thomas Ince, they will get a ticket to join the top split racing if they're available to do so this evening. So at this stage, it is very much Hinz's opportunity to lose here at this point in time, as the two behind continue to race on. Excuse me, here things are getting very close between this trio that we were checking in with earlier, Reese. Andrew Ritchie's still leading Aaron Gilbert and Blake Neck, but there's now basically nothing between these three cars.
The battle for 7th place, and they are all in the same frame on the blimp cam. And I always love watching a battle like this when there's 3 cars involved, and if you're the middle car in a fight like this, you got to do double duty. You've got to try and find a way past the guy in front of you, but you've also got to defend from the guy behind, and it's never an easy job when you're sandwiched in the middle of 2 other cars like this. Well, Neck not getting the best of exits out of the final corner, so Gilbert will be able to take the racing line here as Andrew Ritchie ran a little bit wide in turn 1. Hooks up the exit nicely out of turn 2, though. It is so difficult to get the power down out of the corners at any circuit in this car, but especially not at Winton.
Yeah, this track here, short straights means it's short gearbox ratios, so much like any other short circuit you go to, therefore you've got lots of power under your right foot, ready and willing to be used. At a moment's notice here as we jump back up to the blimp cam for this one here, just to keep our eyes on the group here as they wind through turns 7, 8, and then 9 here at the top of the track, coming to 5 laps. So that's a very slow entry to turn line there for Ritchie. They're trying to maybe stall up the progress of Aaron Gilbert, perhaps, Reese, and it does seem to work for now, given a small buffer between them. Blake Neck directly behind. He'll be looking to try and get on through to on board here with the 42, who's still trying to make his way forward, still hasn't quite found something to do so in the past couple of laps. And now, what can you do now if that's the kind of move that's going to be seen from the driver defending that P7 spot at this point in time?
Well, this is going to be a tough one, isn't it? And we'll see how much curb usage there is here in the first couple corners. You can go quite far beyond the racetrack using those curbs in the first couple of turns, but a lot of drivers electing just to square off the corners, keep the car nice and stable through those sections. Gilbert, I think, starting to feel the pressure here of Blake Neck. We'll be coming up to the hairpin section of the lap again very shortly, and this was around the point where Andrew Ritchie had that slow entry into the hairpin. What he's doing there is he's just slowing up a little bit, making sure that he can square off the exit of the corner and get a nice run on Aaron Gilbert. Didn't do it that time, and Gilbert evidently not making things any easier for himself. A little bit of wheel spin on the exit of the hairpin as well for good measure. So this is going to be a hard-fought battle with only 4 laps to go here in Super Split 2. And another battle has emerged a little bit further up. Looks like Brady Baldwin and Craig Schultz are together now. And Craig Schultz running 0.5 of a second faster than Baldwin on the previous lap to the previous lap, and another 0.2 faster on the previous lap. So it could be a potential change for 4th place here as we ride on board with Schultz, who's trying his best to recover from that mistake that he made earlier.
Indeed, good observation there, Reese. Those deltas, particularly on laps 24 and 25, very handy in the favour here of Craig Schultz. He tries to get back up to where he was earlier on. Gets it all the way down into first gear here to get the rotation on the entry to turn 7, and immediately to second gear to try and minimise wheel spin as he picks the power back up once again. So it's really a deep watch as things continue here, because these two are now certainly nose to tail. Oh, big bit of wheel spin, just as I'm saying that there. And that will give the 07 here of Baldwin half a chance to focus and prepare for the defensive requirements here. With 3 laps to go, still plenty of opportunities to have go at something here, but still, the car's length there. to be overcome by the 655.
Yep, the absolute tea tray of a rear wing here on the Ford Mustang. Quite a bit of downforce at the rear of the car there as the fight continues for 7th place. It's now a 4-car fight because all this battling between Richie Gilbert and Nick has given Stead Miller one heck of an opportunity to make up a few more positions himself. And Miller is up 6 places so far. So if something happens between the trio ahead, then he'll take advantage, no problem. Let's see then, as Neck and Gilbert are almost nose to tail on the way through turn 4. Lots more curb usage from Blake Neck on the way into turns 5 and 6. It looks like a bit of an advantage now for Andrew Ritchie. Aaron Gilbert is really starting to fall off the wagon here, which is an interesting thing to note because he has the youngest tyres in this group along with Stead Miller.
That is important up there indeed. You'll see here. So don't try and cover off the inside there, and Neck's really trying to find some way around the rear of this car, as that's the wrong side of the vehicle. I want this one here, left side, which is actually it's a little deep, although big wobbles from both Neck and Miller there. Reese gonna kill their runs out of turn 10 here and give the breather back to Aaron Gilbert once more. See, indeed, hasn't quite closed right onto the rear of Andrew Ritchie as they're coming to start the second last lap of this race here in Super Split 2.
Indeed. 1.5 laps to go for our leader Thomas Hinz, who is continuing to set fast times up ahead. That clear track and no pressure means that Hinzy is the class of the field right now, and there's still plenty to come in that battle for 7th. We've got battles going on for 2nd, battles for 4th. We've also got 11th and 12th under contention with Dean Powell and Jamie McKnight fighting together, and then there's a 5-car train for 14th. Jason Fewens, Zach Rattray-White, Alex Court, and then we've got Roy Clark and Vincent Skilbeck just behind this lot here. So still plenty of positions to be decided in this race, as finally David Coleman enters the pit lane right at the end of the pit window. He went pretty much the whole race there on a single set of tyres, and I gotta say, Coleman would have been hoping for better tonight. Remember, he was caught up in that incident out of the hairpin on lap 1, and from then on I think it was just a case of circulating and pitting as late as possible. Unfortunately, it won't be any kind of result for Coleman here, as we are now on the final lap of this race. Can Brady Baldwin hold back Craig Schultz for 4th? Can Matthew Brunt continue to hold back Brody Sentence for 2nd place? And what of the battle between Richie Gilbert, Neck and Miller, the last positions in the top 10? There's still plenty to come here in the final lap, though it's only going to be a very short one. Gilbert not able to make any inroads on Ritchie as things stand, with Neck just sitting pretty behind. All of these drivers now suffering issues with the rear tyres, and it's not going to help them here on the exits of the hairpins. Ritchie has a clear track ahead of him, so he doesn't have to alter his line all that much, but he'll be feeling the pressure. He'll be looking in his mirrors. It's going to be an interesting one. But for our leader, Thomas Hinz, there is absolutely no one around him. He's effectively been driving a qualifying session for the last 10 or so laps, and this is going to be a dominant victory here for the number 52 of Thomas Hinz. A brilliantly driven race, started back in 10th, worked his way through in the opening laps, undercut, got him to be ahead of the 9-5 pair, and then they suffered issues. So Hinz, unpressured, to victory in Super Split 2, and he'll get the golden ticket to race in Split 1 tonight if he so desires. Seems that Matthew Brunt is going to hold off Brody Sentence for 2nd place, but that was a really good battle for the podium places, and just behind them you saw Brady Baldwin and Craig Schultz just lining each other up towards the end, and that's going to secure the top 5. Lindsay Hobbs strong there in 4th, and it looks like Aaron Gilbert will hold off Blake Neck there for 8th place. Andrew Ritchie coming home in 7th, very strong finish, and Neck, great recovery back to 9th place. Dean Powell and Jamie McKnight nose to tail across the start-finish line. They'll work themselves out, and Vincent Skilbeck and Roy Clark. Oh, there's been a problem for Roy Clark, as that was an attempt there from Alex Court to get by Zach Rattray-White. It didn't work out for him, but oh man, something's gone very wrong for Roy Clark there on the final lap. I don't know if it was contact. It looks like there is a bit of damage to the right-hand side of that Banter Alliance machine. So bit of a story to tell there after the finish of our first race here tonight. And I can confirm Vincent Skilbeck did make contact with Roy Clark. That's a real shame for Roy. He's got some supporters in the chat, and you know, for his split 2 race, that was a real shame. But Thomas Hinz into the pit lane. He can celebrate victory and go on to race in split 1 if he wants. Hopefully we see him there in split 1. Those are the results then. 15.7 seconds, the gap for victory, with Brunt and Settons completing the podium. It's Baldwin and Schultz top 5. Hobbs, Ritchie, Gilbert and Neck finish in that order, along with Steadmiller, who rounds out the top 10.
P11 tonight for Super Split 2 is going to go to Dean Powell there in the 999, just ahead of Jamie McKnight in the 027. Matt Whitaker brings it home P13 there, ahead of Jason Fewens in 14th. Saw there just at the end as we were trying to watch everyone come through. Of course, Zach Rattray White, apologies there, apparently I can't do my T's and R's back to back like that. Just getting ahead there of Alex Court in P16. And then Vincent Skilbeck gets home 17th, although whether that is, actually that will be potentially some kind of penalty after the race for him there. Simon Chadwick, unfortunately, after starting so well there, ends up back in 18th place, a rough mid-phase for him tonight. Ahead of Stuart Crawford there in 19th. Roy Clark, we picked him up there at the end, unfortunately, recovering from that final incident there. Will bring it home to round out the top 20. And just ahead of the final driver to finish on the lead lap, it was Ben Christensen who would come home behind him in 21st place. Brendan Murdoch, David Coleman, unfortunately, both ending up a lap down here tonight. And then Stephen Kokoschke, the one retirement from the action this evening, there 15 laps short and 24th place. Well, that was a pretty decent race there up and down the field for Super Split 2, Reese. Now, time to take a short break here, though, at SimSpeed, because it's almost time to get ready for the main event here at Winton tonight.
Indeed. We'll have to take a quick breather here because Winton is absolutely breathless. Stay with us here on SimSpeed TV. We'll be very shortly bringing you the action from Split 1 for round 13 of the Virtual Racing School V8 SCOPS.
And
adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
Fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
This is very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Welcome back, everybody, to SimSpeed TV. You're watching the Virtual Racing School V8SCOPS, the 13th round of 15. This is the Too Easy Finance Winton Super Sprint at Australia's Action Track. Been looking forward to this round for some time, and it has certainly not disappointed so far with a great race in in Super Split 2. But now we move on to Split 1, the main game, the big dogs, the heavy hitters, the large boys. And to bring it to you all live on SimSpeed TV once again is myself, Reese Gardner, with Dan Yeaman doing double duty tonight. He's in the comms box with me, and he's also doing the direction tonight, handling production behind the scenes and bringing you these pictures live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch across the world. Well, Dan, certainly a good precedent set by Split 2 with some very interesting racing. Plenty of penalties dished out by race control as well for contact with other cars, just proving how difficult it is to race at this track.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Reese. And, well, certainly some good moments along the way. Don't get us wrong there as to what we saw out there on track in Super Split 2. But at the same time, certainly definitely a couple of crazy moments out as well. Lap 1. Turn 7 was quite the pinch point as well. Speaking of the turns around the circuit, let's once again get yourselves up to speed with Winton Motor Raceway in case you're not particularly familiar with it, but then again, I'm going to put some doubts on it. Anyways, we'll get past all that, blah-de-blah, and yeah, get back to having a look here at the circuit. It's one of our later additions to iRacing's Australian content, which is obviously really good to be able to start bringing more of that Australian content to a series primarily built around Australian drivers, the Australian touring cars, and, well, yeah, not a very long circuit, only 3 kilometres in length, not a lot of straight line to get up to speed, so it's going to be a lot down to how well you can get this car to rotate, how well you can get it to accelerate, and there is important, though, making sure you can get it pulled up in those slower turns as well, and saying all of that, Reese.
Yeah, absolutely. The entire first section of this track is just braking, shifting, and turning the whole time, and trying to control the 600 plus horsepower under the wheels. Of course, as we've mentioned, this layout of Winton is actually the longest it's ever been. The run between turn 10 and turn 1 there, the little shortcut for what is now the club circuit, that used to be the full layout of the track up until 1996. So Winton has been extended in the last 20 years, but still very much a heavy track on braking, heavy on the mind as well. And as the racing goes on, drivers will certainly be fatigued tonight. Also keep an eye out for the pit entry as well. Very tight entry there. Let's check out the championship standings here as we run into Split 1. 2 drop rounds counted so far, but of course things will look a little bit different by the time we get to the final round at Road America. With those drop rounds counted so far, your 2 worst results dropped from your points total. Brady Myers leading by 179 points over the synergy duo of Wayne Burke and Jordan Ross. Andrew Dyson, of course, always a factor in the top 5 in the championship coming to the end. At least that's what we've seen of him over the last few years. That simracing.com DPR is certainly a car to watch out for. It is the Synergy show for the most part in the top 6, with Adam Briggs and Brenton Hobson rounding out that top 6. We got Sean McNamara as well there in the 9.5 SimSport entry, I believe, and in 7th place, with Kurt Stenberg and Andrew Gilliam equal on points for 8th, and Michael Talyancic just dropping in at the tail end of the top 10. So again, this is a case, Dan, of drivers who have seen out the whole season and have continued keeping up consistent results being the ones to watch out for at the end. Yeah, indeed. And it'll be curious to see who can bring things or keep getting good results on the board tonight. Of course,
not many races left in this season. A grand total of 5 races across 3 rounds for the drivers here in top split at the very least, which with the exception of, I believe it was McNamara, which we saw out earlier tonight in Super Split 2. Pardon, apologies. Oh, I'm getting all things crisscrossed. Sure, I was out there on track right now, getting ready. Apologies. His teammates from 95 Simsport who are out there in Super Split 2. Don't get them all crisscrossed and confused. But yeah, certainly watch out for any of those drivers there. They need to make sure they keep putting in results because they will be important for ensuring they deliver the strong result to round out the season as things stand. And well, one last thing we can take a look at, Reese, is the round format for this evening. So, as I said, 2 races here tonight for the top split. And, well, the way things work for them is it's going to be 30 laps for the opening race, 40 laps for race number 2. And with this super sprint format, it means that qualifying is only going to be 1 qualifying session tonight, which will then lead into the second server being manually built up later on this evening, and it makes qualifying very important. Second fastest time will set up the grid for race 2, and you've only got 15 minutes to get 2 good times on the board tonight.
Indeed, because the drivers are going to be split into 2 groups of 20. So if there was all 40 of them out there at once, it would be a very tightly packed qualifying session, and it will be anyway because Winton is such a tight track as it is. So I think there are going to be some drivers who are a little dissatisfied with qualifying tonight if they can't find a gap to really get their fastest time in. We should also highlight that the first race tonight of 30 laps is going to be an out-and-out sprint. There's no compulsory pit stop for it, but there will be a compulsory pit stop for 2 tyres minimum in race 2. And like we've mentioned earlier tonight and throughout most of the season, drivers will easily be taking 4 tyres in that pit stop because it takes the same amount of time to change 2 tyres as it does to change 4. So that's the way things stand here coming into the Split 1 action tonight. It's going to be an afternoon start for race 1 and a late afternoon start for race 2, and track state will be set to 50% for both servers. And the sun is shining out there in virtual Benalla, Victoria right now, and it is a very hot track indeed. Air temperature is still only 18 degrees Celsius, but the sun has been hitting the track to the point that we've got a 43-degree track out there, which means that tyres are going to be even more of a factor here in race 1 than they were in Super Split 2. And with no compulsory pit stop, that means the tyres are going to be absolutely shot by the end of this one.
Yeah, they will. That's going to be very curious to see who's made sure they've got a car that can look after itself over the course of this one here in this first race. As you said, no one expected to, well, no one's required to come down the lane, therefore expect no one to come down the lane as a result. As I'm just checking out here, James Scott currently fastest in practice, but for the longest time, whilst we were getting ready to go here in this one, it was actually Corey Shepherd who was one of the quicker ones out on track, and you can see here he's dropped back into P2, but not much there. Reese only 8 milliseconds in it for the 718 and the 088, and well, not that much back to P3 either. Your current championship leader, Brady Myers, sitting just outside 300ths of a second away from the fastest time in practice so far.
Yeah, the times are as close as they've ever been in this championship. That's been a constant when it comes to V8SCOPS competition. The field is so tightly packed, there is barely any spread at all throughout the field, and it really results in drivers pushing as hard as they can in the race, and it often results in some spectacular incidents. Here's Brady Myers then, championship leader in the number 22 Trans-Tasman machine. Myers has been the most consistent competitor for Trans-Tasman racing this year. We've seen those Trans-Tasman stalwarts like Madison Down making not as many appearances this season as they've used to. But Myers has certainly been there despite missing a few rounds and has had a great run of results, and he's certainly taken advantage of issues and absences for other drivers around him pace-wise. See what he can do here on this lap. This will be third place so far in the practice session, and a 119.3 there for Brady. that's going to put him P1 in practice so far. He's certainly pushing, isn't he, with a huge oversteer moment on the exit of turn 2, just getting his final preparations in for qualifying in 90 seconds time.
Indeed, so making sure he puts his mark on the session to show that he's here to play, and well, be curious to see if that converts to good race pace tonight, which will be obviously very important. And one of your front runners to win the championship, Adam Briggs, currently sitting there in P4, but you can see the gap there from the guys at the front to Briggs here, just on almost a quarter of a second to the race leader, practice leader. Corey Shepard just put himself up the top of that timing tower there as they get ready to prepare. Now, for these drivers here at the top of the timing charts, they are most of the drivers who also will be in the second group of qualifying, so make sure to keep our eyes on them later on and be the drivers. Nope, that's now 3 from 3 who are out there on the track. Let's pick up someone who is. There we go. As we come into the dying parts of the session. And indeed, Alt Seasalt's back out on track once again, this time in the hands of the 06. Bo Albert making a run in V8SCOPS here with appearance tonight, at least. If what he was saying earlier on social media today, it's certainly very much a once-off for the season here in the 06. And we'll see what he can do. Pre-qualifying times looked pretty decent from him. We'll see him in, I believe, the second group of qualifying, although apologies, I don't have those numbers right up with me at this moment. So I might be getting myself all kinds of crisscross there, and we might just see this car out in the first half of qualifying. As there goes the checkered flag for the end of practice, and all cars will be reset in a moment's time, and we'll get that qualifying underway.
That we will. 3, 2, 1, and the session ticks over. So this first group is going to be the drivers from 40th to 21st in pre-qualifying, plus potentially Thomas Hinz, the winner of the Split 2 race. And Thomas Hinz is definitely in the session. Ran a time in practice that was good enough for about, let's see, where Thomas Hinz managed to put himself. It was definitely round about the top 20 for Hinz, so he should be competitive here tonight. But cars out on the racetrack at the moment, and it's being led by Brad Newman in the number 10 machine, the Falcon Esports car there. And Newman is a driver that we've seen quite a few times in V8SCOPS this season, and he certainly had some very good showings. Let's see what he can do as Bo Albert decides, no, I would like to be the car that leads the charge here on the way through the hairpins. The Altus Esports driver of Bo Albert, of course, taking the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup title here at Winton a couple of weeks back. So certainly familiar with this circuit and certainly quick here as well. Got a few Trans-Tasman cars out there as well. Kurt Stenberg, of course, V8SCOPS veteran here in the number 47. Stenny has been here since the outset for V8SCOPS, and he has been a consistent competitor since, and once again top 10 in the standings coming into this round. Certainly shows that consistency is key. Let's ride on board with Bo Albert here for our first qualifying lap of the night. Hard on the brakes into turn 1, hook up the curb in turn 1 and just try to glide across it in turn 2. Control the oversteer and avoid too much of that curb on the exit. Then hard on the brakes again for turn 3. Avoid the curb on the inside, but then a nice wide flat curb on the exit to widen the entry to turn 4. Very nicely done there from Bo. It's a very smooth run. Here's turn 5, bit of camber to this one. Got to be careful not to go too deep though, because it tightens up here on the exit and then into the rollover corner. Don't ride too much of the curb there, because you need it nice and stable for the braking zone into these hairpins. Drivers will go down to first gear, use engine braking to try and slow it up for those corners, and then just keep it in second through the next couple of hairpins and try and control the power on the exit. Wind on as much lock as you dare, get on the power as early as you dare. A little bit of oversteer for Bo on the exit. The run down to turn 10. This is such a deceptively difficult corner. You can't get too much of the curb in the middle there, and don't use too much of the curb on the exit either, because you will spin around. And then a very difficult sequence here, turns 11 and 12. A little bit of oversteer on entry for Bo, but he can use that to hook up the apex. Short blast, hard on the brakes again. A little tap for the final corner. and then out onto the start-finish straight once more. Very rapid lap here at Winton, 1:20.0. That is Bo Albert putting a time in. Brad Newman will immediately take 1.5 tenths out of that and go to provisional P1. And then there goes Riley Bilson and Kurt Stenberg. There's a lot of changes happening here in the qualifying order. Darren Lobb and Cameron V8SCOPS slot into second and third. Ben Morris, James Chastaneuf and Damian Johnstone just going from 6th to 8th there, with Zach Ski in the 333 going good enough for P6. Justin Wallace in the number 13 Race on Oscar goes to P3. Wow, the times are coming thick and fast here.
They are indeed. So there you are. The provisional pole time of 1:19.400 there, belonging to the 47 here of Kurt Stenberg. And then holds that advantage by 1/10 of a second. Aaron Borg, the next car on the timing charts here with a 1:19.504 there. And he will have another 1/10 of it over the car in third on the charts. Darren Lobb there in the 99 for simracing.com DPR currently as things stand. So I'm curious to see here if drivers opt to commit to 2 laps in a row here, or if we're going to see drivers pile into the pits. The answer is they're piling on into the pits, because indeed these tyres don't particularly appreciate 2 flying laps in anger in qualifying trim, despite the fact that these drivers only have 15 minutes to get their times on the board, and we have already used up nearly about 5 of those minutes. Still, that's enough time for these drivers to get at least 3 runs in here at this stage. One driver who did say it, no, make that 2 there. Drivers staying out, James Chastaneuf and Ben Morris, the 43 and 427, go across the line to put 2 times on the board straight away. You can see here, not quite matching their lap 1 times, but importantly for Chastaneuf, at least it's 2 on the board. You can now go work from there and try and really push forward, knowing you've got at least 2 times now, at least for starters here so far.
Absolutely. Well, the EMU sim racing machine has always been out there in Split 2 this season. That car 427 is one that we've seen plenty of this season. And I remember back at the Donington round where you had your first impromptu slide into the director's chair, Dan. Chastaneuf definitely set our screens alight with some interesting performances and a couple of risky overtaking moves. So we'll see what Chasty can do. That was back when he was racing regularly in Split 2. He has graduated in terms of pace to the main game. So we'll see what he can do here. And further to your point about the tyres, once again, the track temperature incredibly high here. It has dropped a degree, but it's still 42 Celsius out there on the virtual tarmac. So really, 1 lap at a time seems to be the way to go for most of the field.
That is indeed looking to be the case. So 21 drivers, times complete, 8.5 tenths or thereabouts, covering our field. So see here as drivers make their way around for lap number 2. See here who's going to be the first one up. Now, this was there of Brett Loxton. Looks like he might be one of the ones who's come out early enough here in this group, making a second round, because Kurt Stenberg only just coming out of the pits now. Nope, looks like once again it's going to be Bo, but be second up, or first up with another flyer. So let's jump back on board with the 06 and see what we can see what we get for the second flying run in the session from this group here. Let's come through turns 3 and already up to turn 4.
Yeah, Albert ran a little bit wide at the apex in turn 3, so this might not be an optimal lap for him so far. We'll see how he hooks up. Turns 5 and 6, goes all the way across the curb once again, and a little bit of a bounce on the way into the braking zone. Hooks up the apex nicely though. He slowed that one up beautifully. Stay in second gear. This second hairpin is a bit faster than it looks, so definitely come and go quicker than you expect. Let's see if he cuts low and he tries to straighten up the exit to that hairpin as much as possible. We'll keep an eye on those sector times, but it looks like Albert's overcooked it coming into turn 10. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if he goes straight back to the pit lane to just get reset again for another lap. Yeah, indeed. There he goes into the pit lane. Might have gone off the track as well. Brad Newman going a bit slow here. Newman, I think, electing to keep his tyres cool and go for a proper lap here as we ride on board with Stenny. And we'll see what Kurt Stenberg's second lap looks like. A nice smooth run through turns 1 and 2, though a little bit of a wiggle on the exit. That's fine though. He's able to keep the traction up coming into turns 3 and 4.
He is, so see here, a little bit of opposite lock there through on the exit of turn 3. Turn 4 looking a little bit nicer though, as they make the run up through the sweeping turn number 5 on the apex curb nicely. Only goes to about halfway across the road as we bring it then for turn 6 up over the curb, and then using the exit curb as we come down into turn number 7 as well. Short shift to second there as we put the power on and then bring your way round into turn number 8. Again, all about making sure you don't overdrive the car through here and make sure the exit off of turn 9 is good. Looks a little bit cautious at that point there, I'd say, Reese, on the exit of 9, but brings it down to turn 10. Definitely using entry and exit decently well there, and only 2 turns left to go. But sure, it's a pair of 90-degree right-handers, but certainly can be deceptive and easy to get wrong.
Yep, on the power, and then tap the brakes on the way in, and out you go. A bit faster than it looks the final turn here. Let's see what this time looks like for Stenny. 1:19.3 is fastest so far, and 3 tenths off. So the 1:19.6 will be his race 2 lap time as things stand. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. It's it's only 2 tenths, but in a field like V8SCOPS, that can make a whole range of positions difference. There has been an improvement for Ben Morris. He's just gone up to 12th place there in the number 43 and gathers up the curb on the exit. He will slow down and tour back to the pits from that one. Probably satisfied with 2 times on the board there.
Yeah, 19.8 there, so almost half a second off, but all the same, currently sitting in the middle of this first group, so not doing too badly there. And with just about 5 minutes on the clock left, indeed 5 minutes remaining for Group 1 there, we'll see checkered flag fly at 20 minutes remaining in the session here, so we can get our change over for Group number 2 and some time in there to, might see the safety car out on track to clear the course. As we see Morris on the in-lap here, deep through turn 9, and not afraid to let the rear out a little bit here. Just trying to see here. Oh, hang on. How's this? Thomas Hinz has just popped up the charts, if I'm not mistaken. He's currently now sitting in P3. And he wasn't quite there last time I checked, so your Super Split 2 went up. Looking to be in the mid-pack quite handily here for race 1 at this stage, Reese. And other drivers, I think, have popped up whilst we've been looking elsewhere. Blake Delaney, who's just ahead of Hinz here on the road in the 08. Fishy Motorsports entry. You see there on the timing tower, sitting provisional P5. And who else have we got here? Justin Wallace. See in behind the 209 of Brett Loxon. PA. Jamie Dykes just jumped up into P17 in the 080 sister entry from Fishy Motorsports. There on a 19.9 as Bo Albert does get a lap on the board. 19.727 jumps him up to provisional P8 there, Reese.
Indeed, and I'm going to request that we go to a replay for Kurt Stenberg because there's something that I want to highlight here. His pit entry coming off of that run was not optimal. He caught the grass on the way into the turn here, and that ended up holding up Brad Newman and James Chastaneuf. You'll see it here momentarily.
There's my camera. That's the one there. Oh,
95 car going in. And yeah, this was just after the incident. So yeah, Stenny unfortunately catching the grass, and he ended up collecting the tyre bundle on the inside there. And drivers will have to be careful not to do this in the race. There is a no escape rule in V8SCOPS, so Stenny wasn't able to press escape to go back to pit lane. So Newman had to wait there to let Stenny get himself sorted. And yeah, with a mandatory pit stop in race 2, drivers will have to be very careful not to catch the grass on the way in there.
That they will indeed. So bit of an oops-a-daisies there from the 47 of Stenberg, but well, everyone gets back out and gets back to driving. As we're coming now inside 2.5 minutes remaining in qualifying. Newman looks to be here on a setup, so let's stay here with the number 10 machine as he looks to improve on P15 so far in the group. But look at the interval times here in this mid-pack. The biggest margin up until P number 3 is 0.058 of a second.
Goodness me. That is an incredibly close spread in the field. Let's see what Brad Newman can do to try and vault himself up the order here, as he is currently 5/10 off that fastest time set by Kurt Stenberg. Improvement for Brett Loxton, meanwhile. Just saw him go up to third on the timing tower there. But Newman keeping it nice and smooth here through turn 5. And let's see how the car is settled on the way into the hairpins here. Looking very nice. Car off the circuit there around his area. Looks like Zach Ski with a couple of issues there. Not able to get back onto the racetrack just yet. But Brad Newman leaving that far behind, and out he will go. That's a really lovely exit out of the third of our hairpins. See what the number 10 can do here with just 3 turns to go. Tip it in on the power, and just like that, there's 2 corners to go. And a little bit of an opportunity to rest here down this straight towards the final couple of turns, but then you've got to instantly be careful of the rear end of your car. Manages to line up the exit very nicely, and out he comes. Let's see then what this time is. Currently, Brad Newman's fastest time in 19.8, and that's going to be a 19.7 for him, and that gains him bulk positions. That's 7 spots gained, I believe, up into 8th.
Yep, it sure is, and continuing now to ensure that we have got cars separated all the way down from, I guess it's P3 at 800ths behind P2, all the way down to position number 20. Less than 1/10 between each and every car as you go up the order here in this group so far, Reese. And, well, I have to say, once again, V8SCOPS doing what it does best when it comes to competitiveness in qualifying so far. Not much time left on the clock here, coming down to the final seconds in the session. Question is, who's going to be the last car across the line?
That's it. 20-minute mark is reached, and well, now we are going to have 5 minutes until the next group is out. We'll see who gets their times in at the end of this session. Newman just coming down to the final couple of corners now. His session is over. Jamie Dyke, I believe, on a quick lap here. Dyke in the 080, negotiating the last couple of corners. We're about to see him come across the line now. Out he comes, and we'll see what kind of lap this is here. 18th for the moment, 119.7, and that will bring him up to 12th for race 1 provisionally. We still have a group to go, and more times will come across the board soon. Bo Albert's last time on the board, 1:20.2. He won't be too happy with that. A little bit off his fastest pace there.
Johnston coming into the final couple of corners. Unfortunately for the 033 is way down in the grass there. And I saw there was another car involved there of sorts. So I think a quick opportunity to have a look at what's happened to Johnston might be apt if we can. So here we go. Out of turn number 10 comes the 033. We'll jump on board as well, heading down into the last couple of corners. And maybe just distracted there by the car on the inside. Pinches a brake and misses the corner there. And unfortunately for 033, that will be session done for him, as unfortunately also finds tyres right down on pit entry for his trouble as well.
Indeed. Well, that's the first part of qualifying over, and this is how things are going to stand. Kurt Stenberg with a magnificent lap there, 119.1, his fastest. That is a full 3/10 clear of Aaron Borg. And if Stenny is to be believed in the broadcast chat, he's racing with COVID. So really good performance there from Stenberg, all things considered, with Borg, Loxton, Hins and Lobb rounding out your top 5 so far. Then we got Blake Delaney, Riley Bilson, Brad Newman, Bo Albert and Justin Wallace rounding out the 10 fastest times set as of right now.
Indeed. And then over the page to your second part of the group, it's currently Cameron Veacock there in P11 with Jamie Dyke alongside in P12. Damien Johnson in 13th, Cameron Jones in 14th, then Ben Morris, Paul Young, Zach Ski, James Chasneff, Tyler Blackburn and Tim Mulford to round out your 20. And then David Kirby, the last car there in group number 1, sitting in 21st place. So that'll do for the group now as we're awaiting the timer to hit 15 minutes remaining before we'll see group number 2 head out onto the circuit here, Reese. And well, this will be, again, as you said, the big hitters. The big hitters of the big hitters, as it were, when you start subdividing down to these guys here in the field tonight.
Indeed. Well, the Logitech G safety car is out on the circuit at the moment. Just seeing Nick Parker there briefly in the top left of frame, doing a little recon lap, making sure the track is clear before the timer hits 15 minutes remaining, and our next group of 20 cars will go out. It's the top 20 drivers in pre-qualifying that we'll be seeing momentarily. So drivers like Brady Myers, Corey Shepherd, Andrew Dyson, etc., we will be seeing them all out there. And looking at pre-qualifying pace, Corey Shepherd, once again, definitely the man to beat in terms of pace. He ran a time nearly 2 tenths quicker than Brody Kostecki, who set the very fastest time. Actually, doesn't look like Kostecki is here tonight. So I'll have to highlight as well, really good performance from Brenton Hobson to run the 3rd fastest time in pre-qualifying. Just 6 thousandths ahead of Brady Myers, and a further 6 thousandths back to Robert Gibbs in P5. So either way, what that tells us is this next qualifying session is going to be magnificently competitive, and we'll be seeing some stonking times coming through here. The track temperature has continued to drop meanwhile. It's down to 40 degrees as the afternoon wears on. We're just coming up to 3:46 p.m. in sim time. So the sun will dip lower, the track will cool, but it's still very warm out there. Hearing engines firing up in the pits, and the 15-minute timer is go. We are away for the next phase of qualifying, and James Scott is going to be the driver leading the way out of pit lane. James Scott recently moving from Altus Esports to Synergy Sim Racing, who have really come to the fore in 2022. It is still a Trans-Tasman driver on the top, though, in the form of Brady Myers. So this is going to be a case of Myers just trying to get what points he can now to try and preserve that championship lead going into the final round at Road America in a month or so's time. Of course, we do go to Sandown for the next round of the championship at the start of November. Let's see what James Scott and Corey Shepherd can do here at the front of this field.
That will be important to note there indeed. So, who will be the one to take pole position for race number 1? I'll be curious to see who can make sure they bank 2 times at the same. Unfortunately, we don't quite have those numbers just yet here. Obviously, they'll be with us in due course at the end of the session. Thanks to the team at Oceanic Sim Racing. We'll be able to walk you through the grid during the practice / warm-up for race number 2. When we get to that point later on the sim, we're seeing quite a lot of cars there heading around turns 8 and 9. Quite a bit of 2 wide action back on there. Bo Cubis is towards the back of the group, so he is not one of those who was side by side. It was somewhere in around here. You can see, look at this, we've got a load of cars all lined up, nose to tail. Rayhan Lionage there in front of him is number 2 of Robbie Gibbs, newly decked out in the Evolution Racing team. Carlos, it's his first time in ERT paint for V8SCOPS. And look at this here, we've got Jordan Ross, Tom Freeman side by side through the last couple of turns. These guys need to sort this out if they want their first laps to be competitive. But let's worry about them later, because let's go up to the man who's leading the line across the start-finish, because this is going board with James Scott here in the 088.
I see how much more controlled he is than the fastest drivers in the first session. It's going to be a difficult ask to get past that time that Kurt Stenberg set. Really great performance from Stenny in the number 47 in that first group. James Scott obviously looking very controlled over the curbs here, and staying in second in that first hairpin, which is something that we don't often see from drivers. They often go all the way down to first on entry just to use the engine braking, get the car rotated on the way into that first hairpin, and then snick back up into second by the time they get back on the throttle. James Scott hasn't done that. It's a nice, calm, controlled lap here from the 088, who we've seen put on some magnificent performances this season, particularly at Interlagos. Really awesome job for Synergy at that round, with Scott taking the win in the first race and Wayne Burke taking the win in race 2, I believe, unless I've accidentally gotten those flipped, which I might have. Out of the final corner, Scott comes. Let's see what this time is going to be. It's going to be a 1 minute 18.9. There we go. New fastest lap of the qualifying session, but it's immediately beaten by Corey Shepherd. And Sean McNamara goes into 7th, Sebastian Flock goes to 5th, Andrew Dyson to 25th, Brady Myers, the quickest driver so far, 118.939. Have a look at those gaps at the front.
And they come on in. Rehan Lineage slots into P4 there in the number 79 for Phoenix Racing Team. So plenty of drivers making themselves known here at the start of qualifying. Kurt Stenberg still holds on to provisional P5 though, so credit where credit is certainly due there to TTR number 47 here tonight. Looks like, well, given what 2 TTR cars there on the top 5 and actually bracketing the top 5 so far, it would suggest that they've got themselves a car underneath them that they can trust at the very least, and have done enough practice to have good one-lap pace in them at this stage of the session. Obviously, the early days here in qualifying, as we're going to watch here, Scott indeed peel to the pit lane. Will there be anyone who attempts to stay on out? I'm not so convinced, as we see here, a whole bunch of drivers filing their way on in. Yep, basically everyone heading on in. Is there anyone staying out? The answer looks to be a no.
A resounding.
Lots of zeros on my overlays speed gathering. Looks like Ken Latta here out of sequence with the field. Already on his 3rd lap of the session, actually. So we might
Bo
see here.
Cubis going out for a 2nd lap.
All right, then. Let's stay here with the number 26 from Evolution Racing Team and see what he can do.
Oh, he improves.
Very nicely done indeed, then. 119.7.
Okay.
New fastest time for him in this one so far. That currently puts him down in 21st place. So solidly mid-pack at this stage. But now we'll be on a cool-down lap, as we've got several of the big hitters currently out there warming up to go again. Get their 2nd laps on the board here in this session. So that will be something to look out for. So really that's everyone's first runs at the very least done. So indeed, your order currently as stands. Brady Myers in the 22. Shepherd there in the 718. James Scott in the 088. Rehan Lineage in the 79. Kurt Stenberg in the 47. And Gibbs, Ross, Hobson, Borg and Burke to round out the top 10. And just over 4.5 tenths covering that group of drivers so far in this session.
Shout out to Rayan Leonage in the number 79. You know, the entire Phoenix Racing team so far this season has been one of the dark horse competitors here. And don't forget, Rayan here is the youngest driver in the field. We believe he's only 12 years old, and he's put on some absolutely fantastic performances. We saw the awesome run that he had with Dylan Pereira at the Bathurst 1000 a few weeks back. So let's see what he can do to improve on current P4. An incredible amount of pace there in that number 79. But the drivers are starting up now for their 2nd runs. Looks like James Scott, he definitely backed off quite a bit on his warm-up lap to let a few drivers by and get some clear air. We'll ride on board with Rayan Leonage, driver exiting the pits just ahead of him, but it's not going to affect him. Lovely run through turns 1 and 2, absolutely clobbering the curbs, and barely a hint of oversteer at all from the number 79. He has got that throttle control down pat.
Nice and composed indeed, using all of the width on the exit of turn 3 and turn 4 to boot. Up into the top of 4th gear, back on down into 3rd as we come through double apex of turn 5. Back across to turn 6, you can see not afraid to use these apex curbs here is Leonage in this number 79. I believe that was also, well, definitely 2nd on the way out. The question is whether he's using 2nd all the way through like we heard from James Scott. That sounds like 2nd all the way through these hairpins here, Reese. So another driver who's got confidence in the front end to rotate without needing the extra engine braking to assist here as he brings it down to turn 10. This has been a nice and tidy lap so far from the 79. We'll see if it's an improvement so far. Might be on to match his current best so far.
James Scott just going to P1 there. He's into the 18.8s now, and Leonage, well, I haven't seen any evidence of the rear end breaking free on this lap, and that is really something special in a car like this. 1 minute 18.8 there for Leonage, and actually a 19.2, my apologies. That's not too far off the fastest time he's set so far. Improvements for Wayne Burke and Brenton Hobson, meanwhile. They've gone to 5th and 8th, respectively. And Kenneth Latter moving up to 24th, finally getting a time further on into the 19 bracket. As Brody Kostecki, I will correct myself, is actually in the session and has just gone to 4th.
Indeed, there we go, he has. Bringing out one of the Boost Mobile Racing powered by Arab's entries once again, although not in his usual car number of 99, it seems. So apologies there for the incorrect number on the overlays tonight. And that would be because the number 99 is also typically used by Darren Mobb, and Darren is here in the session tonight and most definitely rocking that number as well. So consider the overlay numbers a bit like custom car numbers in iRacing then, and not quite synced up with what we've got here actually stamped on the cars for this evening. Now, Kostecki's certainly driving around at a decent pace here, but not currently matching his personal best, it would seem. So I believe he'll be staying on the see if there's anyone who might be improving. Dylan Pereira's close to improving according to my timing here. Let's see, he comes across the line. Close, but not quite there. At a 116.6 there. Puts him just over a 10th outside the PB so far, as we're approaching the final third for Group 2. 5 minutes at that point in time, and well, still nice and tight at the very front of it all. We've got barely a 10th separating 4 cars. Looks like it's going to be a good show for the 70s race, and the fact that you got Wayne Burke there actually tied to the millisecond with Kurt Stenberg, who's just been able to hold on to P6 so far. That 47 is in a very good place to start race number 1.
That he is, but it's going to be a case of avoiding drama for many of the drivers when they begin lap 1 of race 1. And Stenny, for all the pace and consistency he's shown, has had an unfortunate tendency to get wrapped up in incidents from time to time, and often through no fault of his own. So he'll be hoping to avoid that tonight here at Winton. And we'll see these drivers make their way back into the pit lane, as there is Pereira making his way through the very tight right-hander on the way in. It's so challenging to get that thing slowed up and through those corners. Either way, 4 minutes remain in this session, and for many drivers it will be their final opportunity to get a faster time on the board. The Evolution Racing Team entry making their way out of the hairpins and the final corners respectively, and we focus on Matthew Bowler here, who has recently joined Evolution Racing Team, and on to his next hot lap he comes. And Bowler, really a very talented driver. He's jumped teams a bit this year. He started out the year with Pursuit Sim Racing, spent a bit of time with Visceral Esports, and now Evolution Racing Team has picked him up full time. And this is something that we've seen in quite a few V8SCOPS seasons so far. Evolution Racing Team, they're usually a big presence at the start of a season. Their attendance drops off a little bit towards the middle, and then in the late season they come back with a whole contingent of drivers.